So this video here is going to be a little take on the know your local candidate, but instead of looking at one particular race or one particular group of races, we're going to be looking at different measures that are going to be on the ballot throughout a couple of different states, because there's a lot of very nuanced issues that when you go to the ballot box on the 3rd that you might not know about that could affect you in your specific state. And I think that it's important to at least understand what the hell you are voting for or potentially against. And the more information that you have, the better off you're going to be, because you might be voting no for something that sounds like it's bad, but in turn could be very, very good and very, very beneficial for your quality of life and that of many other people. And then at the flip side of that, you could be agreeing to something stupid that is worded nicely and you just don't have enough information on. So enough of me just rambling for the preamble here. First and foremost, we got 4 states that are looking to legalize recreational dope. We got Arizona, Montana, New Jersey, and South Dakota. As well as South Dakota and Mississippi will decide whether medical marijuana is going to be legal as well. So in each of those states, we have the specific ballot measures. So in Arizona, it's Prop 207. In Mississippi, it's Initiative 65 and 65A. Montana, you got CI 118. Montana, I-190. New Jersey, Public Question 1. And South Dakota, Constitutional Amendment A and Initiated Measures 26. Now, this is not going to be the most popular take I have. We'll get the one that's fairly agreeable out of the way first. If you want to use dope as a way to treat pain, way to treat injuries, so you don't have to use opioids, by all means, I think that is fine. Feel free to use it as a medication and as a therapeutic for a set amount of time to get you through the pain. By all means, doing that. But I really don't care if you want to smoke dope. I have never drank, I've never done drugs in my life, and I don't care if you do it. But I've also seen the effects of legalizing marijuana at a national level, and I can tell you, once that genie comes out of that bottle, there's no putting it back. Specifically here in Grand Prairie, we have a significant, and this tracks at the same level that stupid Trudeau got elected in 2015, and he pledged to decriminalize marijuana. The rise in opioid addictions and homelessness and just general shitbaggery around Grand Prairie here has gone up at the same level, and all of those really just kicked off in 2015. I've broken it down in my Grand Prairie specific homelessness video, so for the most part, I don't give a shit. If you guys want to legalize marijuana, you just got to understand that it is the beginning of a slippery slope, and you cannot undo what's already been done with that. And I say that it's a slippery slope because in Oregon, they're looking to do something even further than legalizing dope, because they've already done that with marijuana. It's a publicly accessible, feel free to fucking do it drug, because there's not enough problems already going on in Oregon. So maybe that's just what they're doing every night in Portland. They're just looking for a place to smoke up, and they just can't find the right spot. Only if that fucking building wasn't there. If we just burn it down, we'd have the perfect place for a peace circle, man. We could bang together stuff that falls off, and we could make it sound good, man. I know they're far more annoying than that, and nobody sounds like a 50s beatnik anymore. But here's what they're trying to do. Oregon Measure 109, Psilocybin Mushroom Service Program Initiative. Now you might think, oh, come on, man. My mushrooms are completely natural, and they come right out of the ground. What the fuck's the problem with that? Where does it stop? Where does it stop? You legalize marijuana. Then you legalize mushrooms. Then eventually have an opioid epidemic, and then you just legalize them? I'm not saying that's going to happen tomorrow. I'm saying that's very likely to happen. Like I said, I don't care if you smoke dope. I don't care if you drink. All of this shit is dangerous in copious amounts. Just be careful what you wish for. And especially if you're in Oregon. Measure 109, voting yes, supports authorizing the Oregon Health Authority, which is doing a bang-up job, to create a program to permit licensed service providers to administer psilocybin-producing mushrooms and fungi products to individuals 21 years of age or older, and voting no tells you to take your mushrooms and fuck off with them. So like I said, I will preface this one more time. My libertarian leanings say do whatever the fuck you want. If you want to grow them for your own personal consumption, that would be a compromise I'd be willing to live with. If you're just going to have your own little stash and you're just going to grow them yourself, fucking go ham. But be careful when you do it for people who can't regulate themselves. Because we all know the town drunk. We all know the burnouts out there. And it's not the government's place to tell people what they should and shouldn't do. But when you're being taxed with having to look after them through the healthcare system, then it starts to become your problem. Delving into the whole fucking pot and drugs debate is another topic for another video. I just want you guys to know, if you're in Arizona, New Jersey, South Dakota, and Montana, they are voting on recreational use. And then in South Dakota and Missouri, is that Missouri? Mississippi. One of those southern M states. They're voting on medical, which I completely agree with because it is far less damaging to your system than opioids. So just know that. And moving right along, so I got the scorecard, at least what Ballotpedia calls a scorecard. We're not going to go through every fucking amendment, otherwise this would be a hour-and-a-half long video. We're just going to hit the important swing states and the important measures that are going to be going on throughout the entire state. Because there's a couple that are specific to individual counties, which, if you live in those counties, please make sure that you know what's going on in, say, fucking Franklin County in Alabama or Lauderdale County. They're looking at expanding stand your ground rights, which you should 100%. But the first one that pops up here is Proposition 208 for Arizona, which is for some reason polling as a swing state, even though I will guarantee it will not flip for Biden, because if there is a purpling that is happening in Arizona, there is no enthusiasm for Biden out there. And what the fuck do you think? It's going to take a transcendent sort of cult of personality in order to flip a state, unless they are significantly pissed at the incumbent, which I don't think Arizonans are pissed off at Donald Trump. And Biden is definitely not that cult of personality in order to flip the state, and he doesn't offer Arizonans anything that they hadn't already fleed coming from California, or to anybody that's the base Republicans in Arizona. So it's going to be a tough sell, but at least know about Proposition 208. Voting yes would enact a 3.5% income tax increase in addition to existing income tax 4.5% in 2020 on income above $250,000. So you were just looking after the millionaires and the billionaires, or 500,000 joint filing. And distribute the revenue from the 3.5% income tax to teachers and classroom support staff salaries. You know, all of those people that are teaching your kids how to hate themselves because they're white? Yeah, they want a pay increase. All those people out there that are teaching, in some circumstances, 2 plus 2 does in fact equal 5. So, you know, all of these, teachers are such heroes. Public schooling, for the most part, is a fucking barren wasteland of critical thought and proper ideology. What do you remember from grade school? I'll give you a second. Times tables? Maybe? I don't know. Not a fucking whole lot was going on in grade school that I know I can remember. And yeah, they want more of your money because it's being pissed away in stupid programs and it's being mismanaged. So instead of voting yes for Proposition 208, consider looking at who is in fact in charge of the books for the public school districts and look into their policy, shall we? So my idea is voting no, because taxing hardworking people's income for somebody who works 9 months out of the year can go fuck their hats. At least in my opinion. And here's one. Over in Colorado, they are trying to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is a 9 states who would send their delegates and completely override the Electoral College, and instead whoever wins the popular vote in the presidential election would get all the delegates from those 9 states. And what are those 9 states, you may ask? Well, let's take a look. Washington, D.C. Oh, I'm sorry, that meant 9 electoral votes that Colorado owns right now, not 9 states, because there's far more than that. There's Maryland, deep blue, New Jersey, deep blue, Illinois, deep blue, Hawaii, deep blue, Washington, Massachusetts, yep, Washington, D.C., Vermont, California, Rhode Island, New York, Connecticut, Delaware, New Mexico, and Oregon. Do you see something going on there. 187 electoral votes could go up to 196 potential electoral votes. And in all honesty, when it comes down to places like California and New York, well, kind of prior to the mass exodus that happened during the pandemic, there is no fucking hope, well, for the most part, at least in the foreseeable future, that a Republican is going to win the national popular vote. And you got all of these retards: Martin O'Malley, Corazine, Blagojevich, Jonestown Jerry Brown, Andrew Cuomo, and that lawless bitch Kate Brown out in Oregon. All of these people are overreaching dickheads. But at least Democratic governor in Colorado, which was once very, very, very red, but because of the mass exodus and because they were one of the first states to legalize pot, there you go, unintended side effect there. Californians left and overpopulated places like Boulder and Denver to the point where, if you looked at the previous electoral maps prior to them legalizing marijuana, it was deep red, and even still in 2016, it was entirely red outside of Boulder and Denver. And guess where all the people in Colorado live? Boulder and Denver. Yeah, exactly. And most of those are Californian expatriates, by the way. So legalizing pot has more than one unintended consequence. So I do in fact want you guys to know that. So from Colorado, let's head northwest, northeast. There we go. I always get east and west mixed up. Head northeast up to Michigan, where Proposition 2, search warrant for electronic data amendment. Don't they already have access to all of your electronic data anyways, thanks to Edward Snowden tipping us off? Doesn't the NSA already tap your shit? But good old Michigan. Vote yes for Proposition 2, the constitutional amendment to require a search warrant to access a person's electronic data and electronic communications. Or if you vote no, guess what? They're still going to take it anyways because they already have access to it. But at least you can probably put this little piece of legislation there that might add a little bit of red tape. But yeah. It'll be in the Constitution, though, even though they said that they weren't doing it before under the Obama administration. More lip service, people. More lip service. Now, here's a big one. Nevada Question 2. Marriage regardless of gender amendment. Now, you might think, didn't SCOTUS kind of say that same-sex marriage is totally legal throughout the entirety of the United States a few years back? Well, yes, Don, they did. This is where it starts to get weird. I love the term slippery slope because, oh boy, all you need to do is just take a bad idea, add time, and then that idea gets worse. And here's what we got. If you vote yes for Question 2 in Nevada, you support the constitutional amendment to recognize marriage as between couples regardless of gender. Which is probably good because that's 2 fewer households that these fucking lunatics would mess up. But, oh no, not just households, by the way. State that religious organizations and clergy persons have the right to refuse to solemnize a marriage, and repeal Question 2, passed in 2002, which defines marriage as between a male person and female person. So guess what? If this passes, you can marry your horse. You can marry your goat. You can marry a shoe. You can marry your fleshlight. Who fucking knows? It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It's not really terribly stated there. But once again, I just think that the states should get out of the marriage business. It should be a clearly religious experience, and I think most people who are married would probably tend to agree with that the state should have no reason or no right to interfere with their personal arrangement, and I am very much for that, because the only reason that they're involved in it is to tax you further, like we've seen before with Proposition 208 in Arizona. So any of my Nevandiolas out there, be careful of Question 2, because it starts to get a little bit fucking freaky if you don't, vote properly on that one. By the way, vote properly? No. Keep it between a male person and a female person. People. Real people. Same-sex marriage has already been decided on at a federal level. Okay? Okay. good. Then we're going to head back up to Oregon for a hot second for Measure 108, tobacco and e-cigarette tax increase for health programs. Yeah, so they want to tax your vapes further because it's a much safer alternative to cigarettes, and because a couple of fucking dickheads lit their fucking house on fire, they're trying to tell you that it's unsafe now. There's a lot of research that's out there right now that I'm not terribly familiar with, but I know it's looking a lot like tobacco lobby groups are very much involved with the vaping scene, and they're doing some screwy shit. So if you're out in Oregon, don't let them tax this shit, because that's just a gateway between more interest being held by the tobacco lobbies over a state that is perpetually on fire and smoked out anyways. So, because what they're looking to do is cigarette tax at 16.65 cents, so 17 cents per cigarette, which would be an increase from $1.33 to $3.33 for 20 pack of cigarettes. Okay, I don't smoke, but I know a couple of idiots, people who do smoke, and it's like 12 or $15 to get a fucking pack of smokes, a 20 pack of smokes up here. Or e-cigarettes, another type of nicotine inhalant. So those assholes who plug their fucking smokes into a USB port, which seems like, I don't know, you should just probably fucking hammer a dildo on the wall and just save yourself the fucking trouble. At a rate of 65%. Wow. The wholesaler's sale price. So this once again just kind of takes the government and it interferes with private enterprise, because then they're going to have to disclose how much they're selling these at wholesale cost to every one of their retailers, and then they get charged 65%. Less government, more gooder, people. And a cigarette tax cap of 65% of the wholesale prices, not to exceed $1 per cigarette, an increase from 50 cents. So just more taxes, more interference, less gooder. So there's a lot more state level kind of tax related or infrastructure related little things that are on the ballot. There's 32 states that are going to be having little propositions, questions, amendments, however they want to phrase them in their state, that are going to be on the ballot. So feel free, definitely, I'll be linking to the entire list of all those propositions in the description below as usual. And do feel free, if you are one of those states that will be voting and you have different measures, please do educate yourself about the problems that are going to be on the bills, okay? Educate yourself. I got times for this. But I saved the best for last. Good old California, and we got 3 right here, and they are all atrocious, and I don't like a single one of them. Most importantly, we're going to start with Proposition 22, which could set dangerous precedent throughout not just the state, not just the country, but throughout the entire world, because I will describe to you what the proposition wants to accomplish if it is in fact passed. A yes vote supports this ballot initiative. Oh, by the way, here, I'll just read it. Proposition 22, app-based drivers as contractors and label policy initiative. Now, you see how they kind of phrase that. And it's like, oh, okay, app-based drivers as contractors. Well, they should be because they're working for an app, right? Most of the people who work for these companies, and when they say app-based drivers, they mean Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Uber Eats, obviously, Skip the Dishes, all of these freelancers that are out there who just want to make a buck on the side, who don't want to go through the trouble of setting up a proper employment agreement, and they just want to be freelance contractors because that's the genius of these services, you know. Oh, okay, if you got a slow Thursday night, you want to make a couple of bucks, sign up with fucking Uber or Lyft and, you know, taxi people around for a few hours, and hey, you know what, punch out whenever you're done. And the same thing, just fucking work for your local pizza joint, and you can just, you know, fucking here and there pick up a little shift if you want. That is the genius of living in a right to work state. But no, leave it to California to try to over-regulate. Anyways, back to a yes vote. This ballot initiative to define app-based transportation, rideshare, and delivery drivers as independent contractors and adopt labor and wage policies specific to app-based drivers and companies. Not good. Vote no if you want this ballot initiative, meaning California Assembly Bill 5, passed in 2019, could be used to decide whether app-based drivers are employees or independent contractors. Now, most of the delivery drivers want to be considered independent contractors. And the only reason that this proposition will be put forward by Gavin Newsom is because he wants a taste of it, because this guy never has enough power and he always just wants a little bit more money, a little bit more money. He just always wants his little fucking fingers because, he's kicking all the fucking wealthy people out of the state. So why not try to, interject your regulations into everything else, considering what you are doing throughout the entire state to begin with? And now if this proposition passes and they become employees of these different companies, what that could mean is, well, okay, if these companies are going to start getting taxed because they have to start providing health insurance for full-time drivers, they have to set up another wing in order to start scheduling these people because they are employees, start doing different insurance, all the things associated with having to do a payroll. The cost of your Uber, if it was a $20 ride, let's say, that could very easily turn into a $40 or a $50 ride. And Uber and Lyft themselves have already said, hey, if this passes, we're getting the fuck out of the state. We're not sticking around for this. Shit like this has already passed in places like Austin, Texas, which is, at this point, just a California satellite city. And Uber and Lyft have already pulled out of there because, hey, they've done this shit before. So if you just want to be beholden to the taxi unions and their corrupt practices, sure, by all means, feel free to pass this one, Californians, but keep your head on a swivel. Now, that one just has to do with money. And if you don't have your own vehicle, I suggest having your own vehicle because there's nothing quite like the freedom provided by your own independent transportation. But that is, of course, just my libertarian streak coming out because I always want the individual to be free above all else. This is scary. This is pretty scary. So Proposition 25, which is also going to be on the ballot November 3rd, the replace cash bail with risk assessment referendum. We already got a taste of that when COVID hit and all of the non-violent, that was what it was supposed to be, criminals were let out of jail, leading to an increase of violent crime everywhere. And they want to make that the norm going forward. So a vote for yes for Proposition 25 would mean that you are legally brain dead. Oh, a vote to uphold the contested legislation, Bill 10, which would replace cash bail with risk assessment for detained suspects awaited trial. And a vote for no would prolong the downfall of California just a little bit longer. Just hold it off. Keep the ghouls at the gates, as it were. But nobody brought up Nancy Pelosi quite yet. So how does bail work in California? If you're a Californian, you probably understand, but due to the fact that there is a mass exodus, most states on the West Coast will eventually have to deal with this because a lot of Californians who are fleeing the state realize that I did nothing wrong voting Democrat my entire life. I'm just merely freeing a state that is so high in taxes, and let me proselytize to the people of the heirs of their ways voting Republican, keeping their state so nice and clean and low in taxes. I must educate the plebs out there, you fucking jackasses. As of 2019, California utilizes a cash bail system to release detained criminal suspects before their trial. Suspects paid a cash bond to be released from jail pending trial with a promise to return to court for trial and hearings, which can, of course, be rescinded based on the fact that if they're a flight risk or at danger of fleeing the state. Duh. The cash bond was repaid to suspects after their criminal trial was completed, no matter the outcome. Okay, so yeah, you just got to put up some fucking collateral so you are going to return to your fucking trial that's happening. The Judiciary Council of California, which is rulemaking department for the state's judiciary system, described the bail as a tool to ensure the presence of the defendant before the court, exactly what I outlined. The state's countywide superior courts were responsible for setting cash bail amounts for crimes, and judges were permitted to adjust the bail amounts upward or downward, exactly, based on a multitude of different factors, whether or not this is a repeat offender, depending on the severity of the crime, and additional crimes that were committed at the same time. It could be a multitude of things, and that's what a judge is there for. A good judge assesses all the variables before making some kind of a, just look down the flow chart decision. Suspects could post the bail with their own money or through a commercial bail bond agent. Oh, Somebody Call Dog. Great Aussie song, by the way, I don't care. Who pays the full bail amount in exchange for a non-refundable premium from the suspects. In California, there was no law setting or capping premiums on bail bonds. According to the California Department of Insurance, agents typically charged around 10%. Exactly. And it works instead of just looking at the evidence in front of you. Oh, okay, I have all of this power here that lets me decide if I should set a very low bond for you because, hey, you've been, arrested for a crime and there's reasonable cause to believe that you committed that crime. And instead of setting a low bail, I now have the ability to just let you go free and tell you to come back, because we all know that policies like catch and release have such a great record of having the defendants return back to the court in order to complete the trial. Yeah, it doesn't work. Like 1% of catch and release people from the border come back. That's what President Trump outlined in the final presidential debates. So keep cash bails in place, because we don't need rapists and murderers and some very bad people, some bad hombres out there. We don't need that, okay? Especially if you're in California, because like I've stated before, I would like to see California return to greatness. And for everybody out there who is, and I know that I got a couple of viewers out there who are Californians as well, so keep cash bail in place, okay? Okay, it's probably a good thing. And for my money, this is the single most terribly worded, perniciously worded proposition that's on any ballot across every state. I've made reference to it a couple of times in passing and formally in one of my very early vids. I can't remember which one. There's like fucking 150 videos on this channel already. I know, I work for you people. Proposition 16, repeal Proposition 209, the Affirmative Action Amendment. Well, geez, if you read that, oh, Proposition Affirmative Action Amendment. Oh, okay, yeah, I like affirmative action. I'm a good person. Voting yes supports a constitutional amendment to repeal Proposition 209, which states that the government and public institutions cannot discriminate. This is what they're repealing. Cannot discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to persons on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in public employment, public education, and public contracting. So they are going to allow, if this is passed, the government to discriminate based on immutable characteristics. I think civil rights were fought for that in the 60s in order to prevent judging based on color instead of on character. A very famous man, I think, said something like that before. But in California, they've become so insane that they want to be able to discriminate based on race. If you identify as a unicorn, if you are a woman, if you were born outside the country, this is just another way to discriminate against, well, fuck, I hate to say it, but straight white men, to be completely honest. With all of their diversity programs that are out there, they are going to weed everybody out who just wants to do their job in the name of the diversity. I could go off on an entire tangent based on that alone, but I think it's just very important that you do not, if you are in California, vote for Proposition 209. Do not vote for Proposition 209. People have fought and died and took a fucking bullet to the skull when they were outside trying to take a drag off a cigarette in order to fight for these provisions to be enshrined by the Constitution and at state levels as well. Proposition 209 is great. I was just reading at the bottom of the screen, forgive me. Proposition 16 is a retarded piece of legislation. Proposition 209 is great. Vote no on 16. Vote no on 25. Vote no on 22 if you're in California. The governor and all of his henchmen have completely lost their mind. That's what happens when you have total one-party rule in a state. Outside of San Francisco, that's the fucking textbook example. Outside of San Diego, where there's a Republican mayor, and they seem to be doing relatively fine, except for, all the crazy state mandates. But at a local level in San Diego, everybody seems to be happy. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that Navy SEALs are trained in San Diego. I wonder why. Yeah, you don't really see any of these soft bitches, flocking to San Diego. They're all going to San Francisco to sit on their smooth chairs, don't mind the fist. Anyways, guys, I think that was a much needed piece of education out there, so you guys know what the fuck are these little numbers at the bottom of my ballot here on November 3rd, and make an informed decision, okay? There are a lot of votes out there. You already know the big man at the top. You probably know the senators that you're going to be voting for and the House representatives. Definitely figure out who your mayor is. Figure out who your city council is. And definitely look at these propositions, because there's a lot of nefarious language in there that, like it says here, Proposition 16, Affirmative Action Amendment. Wow, that sounds great. I'm such a progressive. Yeah, you're signing your own death knell at your public job in the meantime, and as we've seen here before earlier in the video, that this is merely a slippery slope. So I will leave it there. I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.